Thank you, Chairman Rush. Secretary Granholm, thank you for your service to America. I truly appreciate everything the Biden administration is doing to lower the energy bills for American families and businesses, and you're doing it at a time where we must clean up the air that we breathe, create jobs, good-paying jobs in the energy sector, and reduce the harmful and costly and escalating impacts of the climate crisis. And fortunately, in this committee, the Department of Energy has often received strong, robust, bipartisan support for what the Department of Energy's missions are. I mean, just look, for example, at the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. What we have provided to DOE and what President Biden, under his leadership, has charted the course is true energy independence and security for America. That some of my favorite provisions I'm going to ask you about: upgrading the electric grid, transmission, everything that you talked about on the new technologies, and expanding capacity. I want to dig into this a little bit more. Over the last few months, DOE issued a new report. It's the Building a Better Grid initiative. There's also another report out there that says we have the technologies to do this. Now with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, you've got funding, but do you have all the authorities that you need from the Congress to be able to fully implement it to help move America towards energy security and independence?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I really appreciate the support that those on this committee who voted for the bipartisan infrastructure law gave, the funding for the grid deployment office that we will be using to shore up the grid, the ability to build out additional capacity of that grid as we move toward more electrification, hugely important. One of the pieces of that I think is the most important is called an anchor credit, where the government can take a position on the build-out of transmission to ensure that we can build that out so that we can have a fully robust grid across the country. But there's two other little pieces that I started to mention, which is there's a wholesale electricity market technical assistance grant that is embedded in the budget this time, which again is to help build out for example, regional RTOs. We want to make sure that we've got a bulk power system that talks to one another, and in the West, we don't have that, for example, and so building out the connectivity between the ISOs and the RTOs and each other is important, and places where we don't have that ability is going to be a piece of it. And then the interregional offshore planning for a grid, particularly along the Atlantic seaboard right now, because that is most imminent. That too is part of what the Grid Deployment Office will be doing. So all of those pieces will be under the umbrella of this Grid Deployment Office, and thank you so much for the support and the interest in making sure we have a secure and effective grid.
Because we have to do it all, and you really have such an important charge here to work with states and utilities and those RTOs to improve the grid, make it more resilient, make sure we bring the lower cost, abundant, affordable renewables onto the grid. But we also have to build from the ground up. And there is such enormous interest in community solar and weatherization, and now we have some of those funds available. You've already talked about weatherization, putting money back into the pockets of our neighbors back home, just in Florida through insulation, so we can save on air conditioning bills and then more efficient appliances. But community solar, all the small business owners, everyone that's able to lower their electric bill, and then after a hurricane or some other extreme event, you know, they can they can plug back in and enjoy a cooler home or a heated home much faster. So tell us, what does the future hold? What are you doing to really engage communities, frontline communities, to make sure that the resources get to the folks who could really use the community solar resources right now.
Yeah, we have a goal of getting 5 million homes connected with community solar. We want to do that quickly. It is the way for communities that maybe don't have roofs or don't own the places where they live to be able to tap into the cheapest form of electricity in most places in this country, which is solar. I'd like to see more of that in Florida, too.
Wouldn't that be great in the Sunshine State?
Yes.
Which right now, the Sunshine State, they're looking at huge increases in cost because we're 75% reliant on electricity from natural gas and not the power of the sun. Thank you very much. I yield back.